Hi everybody, I am here with Ralna again regarding a really interesting topic, property transfer tax. And Ralna is my mortgage expert here with CityWide Mortgages, and we are going to talk about what's new for property transfer tax, or PTT, for first-time homebuyers. Take it away.
Perfect. So a question that I get frequently as a mortgage broker is oftentimes if a couple is buying a property, one person may have been on title for a home before, and then one person might be a new home buyer. So a question that I frequently get is, can we avoid the property transfer tax? So the answer to that is it depends. Some lenders will actually allow, if there's a situation of just two people, some lenders will actually allow that one person to be 99% owner, technically on title, and therefore you can avoid 99% of the property transfer tax and just pay 1% of that. Now, whether or not Revenue Canada will have any issues with that, that's a different matter altogether.
So please talk to your accountant.
For sure.
Quick disclaimer.
Yeah, absolutely. But I haven't heard of any major issues yet. I did have one client who claimed she was a first-time home buyer when in fact she wasn't. So she misrepresented herself to the lawyer, to me, to the realtor, and for why she thought she could get away with it, I don't know. It's perhaps because her very first property that she owned, she was renting it out, but she was still on title, and at that particular point in time she did not own that property anymore, but she still claimed it, and the penalty was double the tax. So it's never a good idea to lie to Revenue Canada, and if you speak to the lawyer or notary, they're not really going to give you any advice in that regard. They'll pretty much direct you back to Revenue Canada, but that is something that I've seen, the 99 and 1. I've been seeing that for years and years now, and I haven't heard of any negative repercussions from it. So I believe that as of today, 2017,
yes,
whether or not they'll still accept that.
That's really great advice. Actually, save a little bit of money. But there is some changes that came to the property transfer tax, and for new home buyers. Yes.
February 22nd, 2017. So the annual budget in BC, the first-time buyer home tax exemption was increased to $500,000, and for a partial exemption up to $525,000, depending on where the price falls. If it falls smack right in the middle of the $500 to $525, it's about a 50% exemption, but the lawyers will figure out the exact percentage, or the notaries. And also I think it's important because a lot of people confuse property transfer tax with the annual property taxes. So the annual property taxes, they still have to be paid regardless. If you're a new home buyer or not, you still have to pay that annual property tax that comes up. If you live in the property, then you do currently get an exemption of, in BC, it's $570 as the exemption. Now, GST, another question I frequently get is, if someone's buying a new home,
That's right, yes,
do they have to pay GST? Do they also have to pay the property transfer tax? So one good change that we had in 2016 was the BC government decided to eliminate the property transfer tax on new homes up to $750,000, up to a maximum of $800, and again, depending on where it falls in the middle, there could be a partial exemption. Now that exemption was done because new home buyers are required to pay GST. So they eliminated the property transfer tax as a way of sort of stimulating new home construction. But again, as far as how much the GST is, that's something that I always ask my clients to check with the developer, get it in writing. How much is the home with all GST? Because some developers will put some sort of exemption there, assuming that you're buying it for owner-occupied purposes, and then sometimes they won't put the exemption there, and it's up to the buyer to sort of claim that exemption on their own. So
I have a really quick question actually on that. With the GST, can you loan on that? Will a lender loan, so it'll loan on price plus the 5%?
Very good question.
And parking as well.
Yes, that is actually a really good question. The answer is yes. A bank will lend on the GST. Like let's say somebody's going with just 5% down and they're buying a home that's 500,000 plus GST. The bank will lend on that 5% GST with that person just having 5% down. And they will lend on the parking or an extra parking space if somebody is buying an extra parking space. As long as all of that information is clearly indicated on the contract or on an addendum. Okay. Frequently we are getting contracts from developers where the price is listed there, but it doesn't specify the GST. Mm-hmm. That's a problem for so many banks, and the developers, sometimes it's a bit of a battle trying to get the developer to say, hey, can you please tell us exactly how much it is? And like we had an issue the other day where the client was actually going to their bank, which in this case was Van City, so they had gone to their branch of Van City. They were contacting us because they had this insurmountable problem. The developer simply wouldn't give them any sort of addendum or any sort of modification to the contract to specify what the price was with GST. And the bank just wasn't willing to accept the contract as it was and wasn't willing to lend on the GST because it wasn't in the contract.
They wanted black and white.
They wanted black and white and very clearly stipulated.
It definitely makes sense. Wonderful. Well, that's our very quick topic on PTT, property transfer tax. There is a lot more exemptions, so please contact us anytime. We would love to help you out and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ralna. Really appreciate that.
Thanks again.
Okay.